Be honest. Have you ever opened an exam, read the very first question and thought, wait, did I even study this? Your heart drops, your brain locks up, and suddenly all your preparation feels like it's slipping away. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. The good news? Test taking is not just about how much you studied. It's about how you approach the exam in the moment. And the skills that make you a stronger test taker aren't a mystery. There are strategies you can learn, practice, and get better at. In this video, I'll show you science-backed exam strategies that can help you stay calm, think clearly, and walk into your next test with confidence. It's critical to stay calm when you take an exam. Stress makes it harder to retrieve memories. Think about it. Have you ever turned in a test, walked out of the classroom, took a deep sigh, and immediately you knew you missed number 22? It's wild when you think about it. You couldn't access that information until you relaxed. When you're stressed, your body releases cortisol, a stress hormone that interferes with memory retrieval. In other words, your brain knew the answer, but you couldn't get to it until you calmed down. You literally don't have access to all your cognitive resources when you are having a stress-induced freak out. This is also why people have aha moments in the shower. It's not about being wet, it's about being relaxed. The same principle applies to exams. So whatever you need to do, and I'll cover this in another video, make sure you walk into that exam as calm and centered as possible. Metacognition simply means thinking about your thinking. The real skill in taking an exam is slowing down and reasoning through each question strategically. When your professor writes a question, they're asking themselves, what do I want to assess? What do I expect my students to know? What do I expect my students to do? So, as a student, mirror that process. When you see a question, pause before looking at the choice and ask, what is this question really testing? What do I already know about this topic? What am I being asked to do? Define a term, make a prediction, apply a concept? This quick check takes only a few seconds, but it frames your thinking and keeps you focused on what you know. Focusing on what you know will help keep you from being confused by multiple choice answers. Here's a sample question. If you placed a red blood cell in a solution that contains less solute than the cell, you would predict that its volume would blank, while the solute concentration in its cytoplasm would blank. Okay, let's role model metacognition and follow our 3-question model. First question, what is this question about? It's about water movement, osmosis, and how red blood cells respond to different solute concentrations. Second question, what do I already know? I know that the solute concentration is how much solute, like a sugar or a salt, is dissolved in a given amount of water. I know that water moves from an area of low solute concentration to higher solute concentration. Third question, what am I being asked to do? The question is asking me to predict how the cell's volume changes, and 2, how the cytoplasmic solute concentration changes. Now let's reason it out. The surrounding solution has less solute than the cell. That means the solution has more water. Since water flows from higher water concentration to lower water concentration, water will flow into the cell. The cell's volume will increase. As water enters, it dilutes the cytoplasm, so the solute concentration inside the cell will decrease. The answer is D, increase, decrease. This is metacognition in action, breaking a tough question into smaller steps, checking what you know, and reasoning your way through. Sometimes the answer choices themselves can throw you off. A better strategy is to read the question, cover up the options, and recall the answer from memory first. If what you recall matches one of the choices, great, circle it and move on. From a neuroscience perspective, this taps into memory retrieval, also known as the testing effect. By starting with what you know, you stay grounded in your knowledge instead of getting distracted by unfamiliar or misleading options. What do you do when you don't know the answer? At some point, you'll face a question with a word or term you don't recognize. Don't panic. In many cases, the unfamiliar detail isn't the main point. It's just there to set up the real concept. The strategy here is to step back, look at the big picture, and ask, what in this question connects to the knowledge I already have? This is called elaborative learning, linking new information to prior knowledge. It's the natural way the brain learns, and it can help you reason through a question even when something looks unfamiliar. Here's an example. The superior vena cava is a blood vessel that carries deoxygenated blood toward the heart. What type of vessel is the superior vena cava? At first, you might fixate on the term superior vena cava. Maybe you never memorized that specific vocabulary word. Panic starts to set in. But pause. Do you actually need to know what the superior vena cava is to answer this? Not really. Let's break it down. What is this question about? Types of blood vessels. What do I already know about blood vessels? Well, I know that veins carry blood toward the heart and arteries carry blood away from the heart. Now reread the question. Carries deoxygenated blood toward the heart. That's the definition of a vein. The correct answer, the superior vena cava, is a vein. The question was testing whether you understood the core concept, not whether you memorized the scientific name. College exams are less about memorizing every term and more about understanding key concepts and applying them. This is so important that I will say it again. College exams are less about memorizing every term and more about understanding key concepts and applying them. Here's another example. What is the size relationship between muscle fibers, actin, and sarcomeres? Now, imagine you never studied sarcomeres. Here's how you think it through. What is this question about? Muscle structure. What do I already know? Muscles are made of muscle fibers, which are basically muscle cells, so the fiber must be large. Actin is a protein and proteins are small. That means actin is definitely smaller than the fiber. Well, what's left? Sarcomeres. I may not know exactly, but if fibers are big and actin is small, sarcomeres probably fall in between. The only option that fits it is D, actin sarcomere fiber. This is the correct answer. Even without full knowledge, you used your prior knowledge and reasoning to make an educated guess, and it worked. The key lesson, don't panic. Instead, connect new details to what you already know. Activating prior learning helps you move forward, even when the question isn't a perfect match for what you studied. Your working memory, sometimes called your thinking brain, can only hold about 4 or 5 pieces of information at once. That's not much. When you overload it by trying to juggle too many details, you hit cognitive overload, which leads to confusion and mental fatigue. This is why multiple choice exams can feel so overwhelming. You're reading the question, scanning 5 points, remembering related facts, and weighing the possibilities all at the same time. To protect your working memory, the first thing you should do is narrow down the choices. Eliminating even 1 or 2 options frees up space in your mind so you can focus on what matters. It also helps to understand how these questions are made. When professors write a multiple choice item, they start with the correct answer. Then they create the wrong answers, called distractors. These distractors are designed to sound plausible. They're often based on common mistakes and misconceptions. But here's the thing. It's actually hard to write good distractors. Think of the game 2 Truths and a Lie. If you're like me, coming up with a convincing lie is tricky. As a result, professors usually write 1 or 2 strong distractors, while the others may be weaker or obviously wrong. That's where your intuition can help. If an answer feels off or doesn't make logical sense, trust yourself and cross it off. Every option you eliminate reduces the load on your working memory and increases your chances of finding the correct answer. This may sound like classic advice, but it's true. Don't overthink. If an answer seems straightforward, resist the urge to second guess yourself into imagining hidden traps. Instructors aren't designing exams to trick you, I promise. They want you to do well, but they're also trying to measure what you learned. Their goal is to write questions that are fair but challenging, not riddles to trip you up. The reality is that in many cases, the simplest, most direct answer is correct. Educational research backs this up. Your first instinct is often right. When you study effectively and enter the exam calm and prepared, your brain recognizes the correct answer faster than you'll realize. Of course, there are times when careful reasoning is required, especially with complex application questions. But more often than not, doubting yourself does more harm than good. Think of it this way. If your gut reaction and your study knowledge point in the same direction, you can be confident in your choice. Don't make things more complicated than they need to be. Here's the truth. The best way to prepare for an exam is to practice in the same format you'll be tested. If your exams are mostly multiple choice, don't spend all your study time just rereading notes or highlighting your textbook. That's like training for a marathon by walking around the block. You need to practice under the same conditions you will face on test day. Practice exams are one of the most powerful tools you can use. But don't just answer questions and move on. Slow down and use each one as a chance to strengthen your test-taking skills. For every practice question, pause and think your way through the 3-question model. What is this question about? What do I already know? What am I being asked to do? This short reflection does 2 things at once. It forces you to engage your memory, retrieval practice, and it teaches your brain how to think strategically under pressure. At first, it will feel a little slow, but with repetition, it becomes second nature. By the time you walk into the exam, your brain is already trained to move through questions with confidence. Think of it like sports practice. Athletes don't just do conditioning. They practice in ways that simulate game situations. You learn best by doing. Exams are no different. If you want to perform well on the test, your preparation has to mirror the test. So here's the bottom line. Success on multiple choice exams isn't about luck. It's about strategy. Stay calm so your brain can actually access what you studied. Use metacognition to think through questions before answers pull you off track. Rely on memory retrieval instead of letting choices confuse you. Connect new details to what you already know and simplify by crossing out weak distractors to avoid cognitive overload. And finally, study the way that you will be tested. Practice under real conditions so that these strategies become automatic. No strategy can erase every bit of test anxiety, but with practice, you'll walk into your exams with clarity, control, and confidence. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like it. Subscribe for more science-backed study strategies and share this with a friend who's prepping for the next exam. You've got this.